welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Headlines series. I'm your host, Jay, and this is The Objective. I want to thank you for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 20 of the Let's Talk Headlines series. Before we get into the show today, folks, I want to remind you to visit me on Instagram at The Objective Podcast. Again, that's at The Objective Podcast. If you haven't already, hit that follow button and also hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Just show your support by hitting that like, dropping a comment, all that good stuff. And also, finally, www.politicalstorm.com. I upload my content to that website as well. But not only will you find my content, but you will find numerous content creators providing you with your daily dose of conservative media. So I would greatly appreciate if you do that. Oh, yes, one more thing. I don't have a Facebook, but if you do, visit Political Storm's Facebook page and throw us a like there as well. Now, so much has happened since the last show, and I typically like to upload one show a week. I wish I could do more. I really do, but I do have a full-time job, personal life, all that stuff. But who knows what the future holds, right? But it's been a while, and, much has changed. I bought a new motorcycle. I bought a new Harley Davidson motorcycle. It's absolutely beautiful. I just came from a trip in the mountains today. We got up early this morning, me and a few coworkers, and we took off to the mountains. It was beautiful. It was humbling. It was magnificent. Just looking at the mountains so close. As you're riding along and you see the lakes and you see the trees and the forestry, it's just so humbling. It's so beautiful. And it reminds me that I have a creator and that I am wonderfully made. And I want you to know that as well. Just a few words of encouragement for each and every one of you that are listening. Now, what I do usually on my days off from work, I sit down, go to a coffee shop, and I read. And I sort of make notes on what I want to talk about. So I guess it would have been 2 weeks ago since my last show. So I made some notes on the Google hearing that occurred, North Korea, relations with the United States, and how Republicans versus Democrats are interpreting those events of President Trump, being the first U.S. president to step over that border into North Korea. Amazing. Awesome. Obviously, that's old news now, and so much has happened. So much, from Jeffrey Epstein being arrested on pedophilia-related charges, sex trafficking of minors, just crazy stuff. And we know Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton, they would travel together to his secret island. I'm not going to say any more on that. But what's interesting, and before we get into the show, guys, what's interesting is the media. They're trying to really paint this picture that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were best bros. I just actually, as I was looking at some content before recording this show, I was looking on some news headlines, and they had this 1992 video of President Trump, well, not the president at the time, but young Trump at, I guess it was some party with some, females. He was dancing with them, and he was talking to Jeffrey. So it's just funny that they're trying to just, gaslight and push out this narrative that, Jeffrey Epstein arrested on these egregious crimes. Let's try to connect him to Trump. Let's show a video from 1992 that proves that Trump is just as vile as this man. And all the while, they're ignoring the fact that their beloved Democrat president, or former president, Bill Clinton, used to travel several times with Jeffrey Epstein on his private jet to his private island that nobody knows about. I think it's very interesting, folks. So keep your eyes open and definitely look into that story. Keep updated on it, because, the media, I find, will try to look for stories where stories don't exist, just to, play that smoke and mirrors. Hey, look over here. Hey, don't worry about all that over there. Look over here. There's something shiny over here. Pay attention to this. So just, be cognizant of that. Be aware of that. And, do your own research and reading, and keep up to tabs on that story. Now, there are a few things that I do want to touch on. The first story today is going to be on the murder of Sadie Roberts Joseph. She was born in 1944, and she passed away. Well, she was killed July 12, 2019. Now, Sadie Roberts Joseph, I didn't know too much about her and her work, but it is generally known that she is an American community activist. She's done much for the Black community, including being the founder of the Baton Rouge Odell S. Williams Now and Then Museum of African American History. She was active in her community. She had a nonprofit organization called the Community Against Drugs and Violence. So she was doing work. I don't know what her politics are. I don't know, what her record is. But at the end of the day, one thing that I do know is that she was an activist, that she invested her time in her community. And that can be appreciated, and that is noble of her. She was found dead in the trunk of her vehicle. This activist, this woman who had devoted her life to her community, was found dead inside of her vehicle, in the trunk of her vehicle. She was suffocated, and a man was arrested. We're not even going to say his name, but a man was arrested. All I'll say is that it was a man from her community that was actually renting one of her properties. They're saying that the motive might be, and as of now, they're still looking for a solid motive. But what it looks like is that this man, he was actually a sex offender that was not registered, who was living in her building. Because he couldn't pay his $1,200 rent, he killed her. And it just goes to show, folks, that you have someone who is doing so much in their community. You have a woman who has lived her life. Born in 1944, she has lived her life. No one, should have their life ended like that. And you have this person who is trying to uplift her community, trying to be a beacon of hope and a beacon of light and a mentor in her community, only to be killed by someone in her community over $1,200. Just tragic. Senseless crime, we hear so much about in the news. Day in and day out, we're hearing about people being killed over, whether it be road rage incidents, robberies. Like you're going to kill someone over some money. And all the while, it shows the irony of evil. And while people are trying to tell you that evil has a color, an accurate assessment would inform us that evil has no color. Despite what people try to tell you, evil has no color. Evil has no race. Evil has no religion. Everyone and anyone is capable of evil and wickedness. It comes down to the ideals that you subscribe to. It comes down to your character. It's not about your color. It's not about where you're from. It's about your choice. Speaking about senseless violence, I was reading a headline. MS-13 members hacked up one victim and cut out his heart. Federal indictment says there is a huge indictment on MS-13, a vicious gang. MS-13 is a gang that is well known in Los Angeles. They have their reach all across America and New York, all over the place. It's made up of South American individuals And their record is bloody. It's gory. It's vicious. And there's a 78-page indictment on more than 20 MS-13 gangsters and thugs, detailing some horrific slayings and murders. Senseless. I mean, this is coming from a gang where in order to be part of the gang, you have to have a body count. You have to have killed somebody in order to be part of this gang. And there are a lot of these folks in this gang. And time again, the president actually has condemned MS-13 and has tied them to illegal immigration. Now, it's no secret MS-13 is a gang that comes from south the border. And they've made their roots in America. And the president, again, has castigated. The president, again, has constantly, look at the record. He has constantly condemned these people. The president has used MS-13 as one of the reasons why there is importance in a wall, why there is a reason to have a wall, to have a border, to protect the constituents of his country. You would have to be insane to think that you can have open borders, people come as they go, and that your folk will be safe. Your community, your constituents, your citizens will be safe. That is absurd. The amount of mental gymnastics you need to do in your mind to think that that's okay and that's how the world works, it is crazy. Common sense is not so common anymore. And it makes you wonder, what is the motive? What do these people have to gain to ignore the trafficking, the rape, the murder of these young women that are crossing the border? I wish I could just pull the veil and see what is actually driving these Democrats in wanting to circumvent the law in relation to immigration. Take a look at this clip before we get into our last segment, guys. Maybe you'll understand when I say common sense is not so common after watching this. I'll be back in a sec.
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation, of the many that you recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in a car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Holman,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the memo is
Welcome back to the second segment of the Objective Podcast. I'm still your host, Jay, and this is Season 2, Episode 20 of the Let's Talk Headlines series. The Squad versus Trump. The Squad. Who is the Squad? The Squad consists of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. Now, these four have joined together not only in opposition, in the obvious opposition to President Donald Trump, but in opposition to Speaker Nancy Pelosi. you always hear of the feuds that are going on between the speaker and, the shade that Nancy Pelosi is throwing at AOC, talking about how, a ham sandwich with the letter D beside it could have won New York, and she didn't do anything special by winning. Not going to lie, I'm not a fan of Nancy, but that was quite funny. And Nancy's constantly talking about how, AOC has a large Twitter following, but at the end of the day, that means nothing, really. This is not a popularity contest. Now, the most current event that has galvanized the squad, and even you can say the Democrat Party, has been comments that the president made in relation to the squad, as I'll call them. It's so cheesy, but I'll say it because that's the name that has been designated to them. Now, the constant criticism of America, how America is the most racist country, how America is so evil, so wicked, so, depraved, it prompted the president to say, listen, if you don't like this country, go back to your own. Now, nowadays, obviously that will cause people's heads to explode. We live in a time and among people who are extremely sensitive. Now, nothing's wrong with being sensitive. As a matter of fact, I'm a sensitive person. And it took me a while to actually understand that. But this is not a psychoanalysis of myself. We'll get into that another time. Sensitivity, nothing's wrong with sensitivity, but unbridled sensitivity and unharnessed, uncontrolled sensitivity, hypersensitivity, is a bad thing. And hypersensitivity does not permit growth and strength. Always wanting to be coddled, always wanting to be assured and comforted does not make you a tenacious and a resilient person. It makes you dependent. Now, as I was saying, where President Trump said, if you don't like this country, then go back to your own, fix your own countries then, and then come back and show me and tell me how to do it. Now, it's very blunt, okay? The Democrats are using this I shouldn't say the Democrats because I'll tell you why I'm not going to say the Democrats. Because according to CNN, the House kills solo Democrats' bid to impeach Trump. And that solo Democrat will be, again, what's his name? Green? Is it Al Green? I hope it's Al Green. That for some reason his name just popped up in my head as Al Green. We'll call him Green. I'll just read this segment here. It says... Oh, yes. Representative Al Green was able to force a vote under House rules, the first that Congress has taken related to impeachment since Democrats took control of the chamber last year in what amounted to the most direct challenge yet to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's handling of impeachment. Now, before I read on, we know that Nancy Pelosi is a little apprehensive when it comes to impeachment. She says, before we even go for impeachment and push for the articles of impeachment, we need to make sure the public is on our side. That should tell you something. That should tell you a lot. The mere fact she is not ready to go on or jump on the articles of impeachment is because she knows that that is not in the public's interest. Despite all this yelling and loud talk about how evil and wicked and useless and destructive President Trump is to not only foreign policy, national security, and the economy, what we have to realize is that they know that the public is not for the impeachment of the president. It's a bunch of fear-mongering. So Al Green pushed ahead, and the result of the articles that he pushed forward for impeachment, 332 to 95. So there were 137 Democrats who joined the Republicans in voting to defeat the measure in the House. Now, the House, as we know, is run by the Democrats. And the reason why Mr. Al Green decided that it would be expedient and wise and judicious to impeach the president was because of his comments. Apparently, the House had voted to condemn his comments against the squad, telling them to go back to their countries. And he said that this was a conviction, meaning that it is enough for them to impeach him based on the words that he said, telling them to go back. That is enough to impeach him. Folks, what we're seeing here is a floundering, desperate beast that is, gasping for air. Is a dying creature that is gasping and reaching for relief. The Democrats have nothing. We know that Robert Mueller is going to testify, and his testimony was actually pushed off by the Democrats, I think, till next week. They are going to try to sensationalize, oh my goodness. They are trying everything they can to win public opinion in hopes of impeaching the president. Instead of beating him on policy, instead of beating him on, the economy, on legislation that will help the American people or help the people that they call victims, instead of doing these things and actually coming with a platform to compete with the president, for the next presidential election, they say, no, we need to impeach. We got nothing. All we have is potential impeachment. It's sad. It's embarrassing. And it just goes to show that all American people are, to these elites, are pawns. Everything that is done is to benefit the party. Your vote counts only so much as it means putting them in power. And the reason President Donald Trump won was because people began to realize that. They began to say, you know what, if you just want my vote to be in power and to enrich yourself, you don't deserve my vote. Hence, President Donald Trump won the election in 2016, and he's doing incredible things. You may not agree with that now, and you may look at this and, shake your head. But I guarantee you that the history books will sing praises of this time that we live in. Thanks for tuning in to the 20th episode. Make it your goal to be objective. Have a good night.